As we honor Native American Heritage Month, today's episode is very special to me. It's a tribute to the enduring legacy, wisdom, and resilience of the Native culture. We are incredibly privileged to welcome Ernie LaPointe, the great-grandson of the legendary Lakota leader, Chief Sitting Bull. Ernie carries forward his ancestral teachings, sharing the deep-rooted values, spirituality, and connection to the land that has been part of the Native American culture for generations. Today we'll journey into the life of his great-grandfather, Sitting Bull, whose strength and vision still inspires the Native community and beyond. From understanding sacred traditions to rethinking our relationship with nature, Ernie will help us uncover the profound lessons we can learn from Native culture to guide us in creating a more harmonious future. So, I'm Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told. Please welcome back to the Truth Be Told studios, where Ernie will share his wisdom of the past and discuss how it can shape our present and our future. Welcome, Ernie.
Thank you.
Hey.
Oh,
Well, Ernie, I am so happy you're back. I'm so happy you're here. You're one of my favorite guests of almost 1,000 guests I've had on my show, just because of who you are as a person. You're such a wisdom-filled man, spiritually filled man, and just a kind man. So I appreciate you being here.
thank you. Appreciate you too.
Well, okay, so we're going to get started because November is the Native American Heritage Month, and a lot of people may not know what that means. But what does this month represent for you personally, and what message would you like to convey to our audience today that may reflect on history and contributions of the Native American communities?
Well, to me, I really don't. As a Lakota, we never had these month events like
Right.
they do here. And we don't have monuments or nothing like this. But on the other hand, I kind of appreciate the time that the public gives us in this month as Native people, as Native Lakota people to, share who we are and what we know and which way we're going. And being related to my ancestor,
Right.
it makes me, I guess you might say, I'm not like him. I don't want to be like him. It's a hard life. He had a hard life.
Yeah, he did.
And, but my life, I enjoyed it, even though at times it was hard. I learned from my mistakes. But I always learned that my great grandfather was, the historians always talk about him being a leader. In the Lakota way, they weren't really leaders. They were like caretakers and providers, spokespersons of the people. And they were chosen that way because of who they are and how they carried themselves, how they balanced their compassion, generosity, fortitude, and their humor and all the things that is all in all of us. And as a Lakota, you were shared as a young boy, as a young child growing up. Girls and boys are different. So, but girls were shared a lot of things where men weren't invited. So I don't know what goes on in their gatherings. But with us, we were given a purpose in life to find out who we are. We can't be like nobody else. We had to be like ourselves. And as you get older, you start to realize, you listen to elders, male and female, stories. And my mother taught me first. She was my first teacher. She told me all the time. She always said, never fear anything. She says, always listen to the elders. She says, they'll tell you stories, but always take something out of there that you can incorporate in who you are and create within yourself what your purpose in life is. So that's what I did, all my life. And then when she passed away when I was 10 years old, I had nobody except my father. And my father, he wasn't as traditional as she was, but actually he was supportive of what I was trying to do. But then when he passed away and I was 17, then I had to fend for myself because I was the only child between my mom and my father. And they had children. My father was married before, so was my mother. So my siblings were half, half
Right, right.
this side, half my father's side, and they really didn't like appreciate me in a way because I was the youngest one, and
I'm the youngest too,
so
so I know the feeling.
yeah, so I had choices that I had to make for my own self at 17. What I was going to do. I mean, I couldn't really do anything because I wasn't old enough to do anything, right? So I had to. So I stayed with my sister. She became one of my older sisters on my mother's side. She was like my guardian until I turned 18. Then I can do whatever. So when I turned 18, I had many different, directions to go. But I joined the military,
Hmm.
and and in a way, I look at it as either positive, negative, or good or bad. I mean, it was just my choice.
Right, right.
And from being in the military, then I noticed a lot of things that I was taught growing up. And one of the biggest obstacles, or you might say the biggest roadblocks in front of me was racism. I
Hmm.
faced it when I went into I mean, I kind of faced it growing up, but not as bad as when I was in the military.
Right.
They didn't really appreciate who I was. I mean, I went through advanced individual training, and they gave me a test, and I guess I was really great in mathematics. It came to me naturally. I don't know. I mean, figures just, geometry, trigonometry, all these things just kind of fell into place with me, numbers. So I ended up going to FDC, call it Fire Direction Center, which you dealt with, the azimuths and deflections and quadrants and all that. And you had to run trigonometry, all this stuff. And they didn't really appreciate me. I mean, I knew it. I knew it from different units I was in that they looked down at me saying, how come this Indian is learning this stuff, right? Well, it was my job. I mean, I learned it, but I could never get into the job, so they always put me in somewhere else,
Right, right.
doing something else. So and that was always denied getting a rank because of me, and so I didn't take it, as any kind of a hate back toward them or nothing. I
Right,
was just
right.
who they are, as the elders taught me. They said, you always got to do this, and always laugh off people who look at you and because they don't like you because of the color of your skin or whoever you
That's
are.
hard though. I mean, I'm sure that's hard.
Well, behind the scenes, when I leave, I go behind the scenes, I get back in my room or whatever, and I laugh it off. I says, if this guy only knew who I was,
Right.
you know, he would have a friend. He would have a real,
Mm-hmm.
true friend, that would stand with you, through thick and thin, times hard. But they didn't look at it that way. See, so I didn't let it bother me. I mean, I went through life this way, and then as I went to Vietnam and I came back after that, I started having these problems with the war. The
I'm sure,
memory,
yeah. PTSD.
the flashbacks and dreams of the place. All I still do, but I
Right.
know how to deal with it now. And so I did a lot of things. I drank alcohol. I mean, every day, every
Hmm.
night. I mean, I went to work every day, but I couldn't sleep at night because I feared my dreams. So, but I'd get up, man. Pretty soon I was used to it. I'd go through
Wow.
the things until
Right.
in 1989 is when I went on the street. I lived on the streets for 4 years. I lived with
Did you
Vietnam
really?
veterans.
Wow, I didn't know that.
We lived in all over the U.S.
Yeah.
Our headquarters was Denver, Colorado. That's where we started from. We'd go to Washington, Minneapolis,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Arizona, California. I mean, our mode of transportation was a freight train. But our main thing was, there were 7 of us. 6 of us were natives and one white guy. He was a foreman in Vietnam with the Marines. He had a little medicine bag. Little bag with his stuff in it in case we get hurt or
Right.
whatever. He doctored us. And we took care of him. He took care of us. This is how it was in Nam.
Mm-hmm.
The brotherhood, the camaraderie was strong. And but the only downfall was we used to drink to sleep. But
Yeah.
we didn't realize that the more you got drunk, the worse it got because the memories came on. It would fight
Right.
each other.
Right.
But next day we get up and he doctored us, bruises, black eyes, fat lip, whatever. But we were brothers, we didn't know why we fought, but I think it was because of the memories.
Yeah.
And eventually, in 1989 is when I came up from under it. We had the 38th Street Bridge in Denver, Colorado, along the Platte River was our sanctuary. The cops didn't bother. Nobody come down there because we had guards down there. They had a guard on one end, the other end, and they had mini 14s. They'd blow you away if you didn't know the password. So
Right. Right.
Yeah. And finally, I got out from under there, like I said, and when I quit drinking. I couldn't do it on my own, so I cussed out God because I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in nothing. And when I did that, the next day they let me out. I was in jail, and they let me out because I got in a fight with a couple of guys, and they threw me in jail. And I got out, and I forgot about everything I said because I started having a hangover. I needed a drink. And then, as it turned out, I couldn't drink it.
Wow.
And I didn't know how in the heck this happened. The desire was there, but the effort to drink it wasn't there. I couldn't do it. I couldn't lift the bottle to my lips anymore. And I went through terrible heck, for about 6 to 8 weeks. I was having these withdrawals. I was cold sweats. And then I started to come out of it. The minute I started getting, smoothed out, the memories were coming back. And they were strong.
I bet.
Times, I'm in Colorado. You look at the mountains. There's times that you're in Vietnam. There's big mountains. I was in Ashaw Valley in that. All these big mountains in the Ashaw, and it just takes you right back.
Wow.
I didn't know what the hell was wrong with me, man. I knew I wasn't mentally screwed up or nothing. So I met another non-vet, and he grew his own little medicine. So we used to sit around together, and he had a little corncob pipe, and we'd sit there and and it took me back to when we was numb. When a guy got killed, everybody would smoke some Laotian green or Cambodian red or Thai or something to smooth it out. So, you didn't really miss him. You remembered all the good things about the guy, and you laughed, and then everything leveled out. So that's what me and this guy was doing. And then I said, I got to do this, because I can't, if I didn't do it no more, I said, I'm going to be going back to this, fighting and, kicking the cat or whatever. So I just started doing this. And I worked for a telemarketer in Denver, and I was buying myself a pound a month. I'd break it up in quarters, smoking a quarter a pound a week,
Wow.
Just numb the memory. But I could get along with everybody.
Right.
It didn't bother. I didn't have the munchies. I didn't have the red eyes. I have nothing. It was medicine to me. But in '93 is when I got busted for this. But before I got busted for it, I started going to visit elders, on a reservation in different places, and listen to them, tell them about a lot of them were vets, somebody, old World War II vets, Korean War vets, and they would tell me, that they had this problem too, the memories and everything. So I used to sit around and I'd listen to their stories. And then went over and met some of these medicine people. And I met this one. He was what you call an eagle dreamer. Spirit of eagles were all around him. And I went to his cabin in Pine Ridge, and I walked into there and I gave him I had a pound of coffee and some tobacco, and I offered it to him. He took it. I sat down and he started talking. I could hear these eagles, how they whistle in his room, his house. But there was no eagles. He said, those are my friends. He said, just checking you out. He said. So I was looking around. You could feel the wind from their feathers around your ears. And, you look around, there's nothing there. And he laughed. He said, don't worry. He said, they ain't going to hurt you. But he started telling me things, and one of the things that he told me was about the Americans, he called them the foreigners from another country. He says, for all this time, he said, we've lived on this earth lived on this turtle island.
Right.
He said, about thousands of years before the people came here, he says, and we took care of the earth took care of us. And he says, all living things are here to balance the survival of this earth and for us. And he says, everything that moves in the wind or anything, he says, has a spirit in it. He said, the trees, the green growing things, the grass. He says, when you walk out in the field, he says, and you look out there, he said, you might see some medicine growing or something. And he says, in the trees, they tell you a story, the wind blowing through the branches. Or a little creek, he says, it bubbles as it goes along. He says, it tells you a story. You listen to it. He says, if you slow down, humble yourself, listen to it, he says, it'll tell you something. He says, about yourself or about which way you're going. And, I never was really into anything, and I'm
Right.
thinking, what a dummy, just tell me something that doesn't make any sense, right?
Right.
Well, I shouldn't have thought that way because things started coming down on me pretty heavy, because the spirits were saying, you better listen to this guy. Well, that's when he told me about the people that came here. He says, they came here, he says, and the creator didn't, do anything to him. He said, because we're the last nation pretty much on this earth, he said, that still lived without fear. We didn't fear nothing. We didn't fear each other. We didn't fear nothing.
Mm-hmm.
He says, when you don't fear nothing, he said, you don't go around saying, I don't fear you. You show by example that you don't fear nothing. And he says, you respect all other things then. If you have no fear, you respect.
Right.
Respect each other. He said, other nations, other tribes, the bears, the mountain lions, the wolves. He says, they know. He says, you encounter one. He says, and you come face to face with them. If you don't fear it, it reads your energy. It reads your aura. He says, it's not going to attack you. It might walk with you for a while, and he said he'll take off, as long as you don't show fear, or a snake or something. And he says, they give these Europeans 500 years. He says to try to learn how we lived with this earth, how we lived with this turtle island. He says, and how we kept it so pristine. He says, we live in one place for a while, he says, and we move our teepees out. And he says, within a week or two, maybe a month, it's like nobody's ever been there.
Wow.
We didn't leave trash. We didn't destroy it. We didn't do anything. He says, the grass that was there is laying down because we're laying on it. When we leave, it stands back up. It's like, we weren't even there. He says, sometimes you might find some teepee rings. He said, rocks. He said, they'll hold your teepee, down. And he says, well, we care for one another. We didn't hate. We weren't envious. But he says, we were storytellers. We tell each other, the good stories. He says, and most storytellers never lie. So this was something that I'm carrying right now as I'm coming forward. He told me, he says, eventually, he says, things are going to start to go off tangent, kind of not, I say tangent, but he said another direction. And he says, when this happens, he says, you will, as you go, he said, your path is going to take you towards a place, he says, when they're going to tell you something. And so I left there, and I gave me time to think. And then in 1993 is when I started getting back into my culture, with
right.
I was called, without me knowing it. And then when I went into the ceremony, the spirit told me, he says, we've been trying to get you to come. He says, we give you messages, subtle messages. He says, what we call the intuition, your gut feeling, boom, something makes you want to do something. He says, that's us, he says, trying to get you to come back this way, he said, because we have something for you to do. And he says, and you've been avoiding it. So I said, okay, what do I got to do? And he says, we chose you to be a messenger.
Wow.
Wahoshi Wichasha, he said, that's what a messenger is. And so I said, what kind of message? And he says, I got Sundance, I did all this vision quest here at Bear Butte. And one night I was up there and the spirit came to me. Well, it didn't come to me yet. I was waiting, listening. And all of a sudden I hear people crying. And I said, what's going on? Because a couple of times there, somebody gets sick or something, and it was coming from the camp. And my wife was down there, and I started getting worried. I said, something happened. So I was getting ready to just step out of the altar I was in and, holding my pipe. And I was going to go down there to see what's going on. I'm not supposed to leave, no matter what. And I caught myself. I said, maybe I shouldn't. So I stood there, and then next to me, there's a big rock formation next to me. And this crying came from there. The crying was so mournful. It made you want to cry with them,
Wow.
I mean, going, man, what's wrong? And it was all around me pretty soon. It was just loud, and I didn't know what was going on. And I was up there, and I started, I was half almost crying myself with them, and the voices. It just pretty soon it was like the whole mountain was crying, men and women. And I'm going, man, So I asked the creator, so what is going on? And that's when the spirit came to me. He said, I want to show you something. He stood in front of me. It was a shadow, and he went like this with his hand. He said, look this way. And I looked down. And he said, I seen all these people. They were running around in sheer panic.
Wow.
Screaming and hollering, and that's what I was hearing. These people crying. And I said, what's going on? And he says, don't shy. He says, don't. He says, well, you'll get the message later. He said, every time. So when I went back down and went to the ceremony into the purification lodge, they told me, the spirit came in and told me, he says, what you heard is what's coming from the future. What you've seen is what's coming from the future. And I said, and this is the message that you're starting to learn, that you have to share with the world. And he said, the message for you is to push to the people to let go of fear. He says, we have emotions, we have compassion, generosity, fortitude, fear, humor. He says it's a balance in us, just like the ecosystem out here.
Right.
He says, but this balance which is within us, he says, you cannot let one override the other. And he says, and when the Europeans first came here, they had that fear. They couldn't let it go. He says they lived in fear. And he says, the minute a child is born and can be able to walk, we teach it fear. Like say you have a little 5-year-old kid that's not learning how to speak and stuff.
Right.
And it's out there playing, and his mother comes out there and says, get in here and, do this, or you're not getting ice cream. So the little kid wants the ice cream, so he comes in, he has to do whatever he's doing. Right there's fear. Putting fear into the child, because if I don't do what they say, I don't get this. And they grow into it. But when they're younger, you can almost, like with me, I was a little kid. My mother always told me that. Don't fear nothing. I did things that, and I was never spanked. I was never, nobody ever took a belt or switched to me, because my mother always stopped them. She said, he has to learn. And, I was pushing this big tractor tire one time over, and my brother was doing it, so I was watching him. And when they left, I got this tire behind the house myself, and I got over the top of it. And it was a big, rear tractor of a tire.
Those are big.
To me, it was huge. But,
yeah.
It wasn't that big. I went over and I crashed into the back of the house with my head nose. And I think I about broke my nose. I was bleeding. And my mother came out there. She heard it. She heard me hit the house. She came out there. She had no pity on me. She says, well, what did you learn? She says,
don't do that again.
I never did it again. But, she said, these are things. She said, you make mistakes. You learn from them. You don't do them again. So, all my life, this is how I live. I'm a man, so I make mistakes. How men are,
Oh, yeah. We're stubborn.
We always think we know it all.
Yep,
We always think we're the bosses. But the main back thing with our culture and our Lakota way is the woman was the backbone of our culture.
Wow.
But she had her wisdom. And that's what these girls were taught in these ceremonies, how to use their wisdom in such a way to be able to keep the balance with the man. The man was a provider, protector. A woman was the keeper of the camp, the teepee,
right.
Everything. So basically, when a man is chosen, like my great-grandfather was to be the spokesperson, you had to acquire at least 10% or maybe a little more, maybe 15%, because you can never acquire what the woman knows, but you try to acquire just a certain percentage of her wisdom. How to sit in a council without arguing, how to sit
Mm-hmm.
amongst men without fighting. You can settle issues without having to, to go to blows. Because you see women, if a woman, if you got a group of women over there, and they could argue, you're arguing over something. They get together and there's no big fight. They know how to settle the issue without a fight.
Right.
Or you take a bunch of guys, and then first 5 seconds, man, the fight's on.
The fists are going, yeah.
Yeah. And big old tough guys,
Yeah.
But that's the problem with what's happening right now. And I see all this. And I wrote this book called The Sundance. It's in French, about people. There's nobody can teach this to nobody. I can't teach it to you. I can tell it to you. I can plant that seed in your head or awaken that little part of your inside of your brain somewhere we're all born with, to be able to understand that awakening opens up, and you have to learn how to teach yourself. I mean, you sit in this classroom, as a young child growing up, and then you sit in the college classroom, right. Professors in front of you. They're teaching you something. The thing is, you have to take a little concept from them and teach yourself. Your mind, your heart has to reawaken within your soul, your spirit, to let go of fear. And that's one of the most difficult journeys. I have a friend of mine. He's 65 years old. He lives in eastern part of the state. He's a veterinarian, and I talked to him for years, a couple of years. He asked me, he called me and try to reassure him about doing this, because he was taught as a little child to fear, and he said his mother told him he had to go to school to become, a degree, a veterinarian, because his mother told him, she was an educator. He said, if you don't go to school and get this degree, he says, you're going to be a bum or a clerk in a 7-Eleven store.
Right.
And I said, at least you're working, right? I mean, you can do something, gradually go up, He said, this is the fear they instilled into me. He says, whether I wanted it or not, I went. And now he says, I got the degree as a doctor, he says, to doctor the animals. But he says, it's hard, man. He says, when you're older, to let go of fear. That's the most, I told him, I said, the Spirit told me, he said, at least if they try, if they give it a percentage in their life to try to let go of fear. When you have fear is the base root of racism, greed, jealousy, envy. Everything that's out here comes from fear. You could fear somebody, maybe he's not a person of color, but you get two white guys together and they despise you. It's like the keeping up with the Joneses thing,
Yeah.
Trying to up each other,
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Or he's got a better degree than I got, kind of a thing. And see, that's the fear of something, that somebody has that they want to be better.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon there's no spirituality. There's nothing. If religion, because the Spirit told me, I'll take a step back. The Spirit told me, he says, when you start this journey, he says, you're going to anger historians, educators, physicians, scientists, politicians. He says, all these are they went to school or something to learn something. And you didn't go to school, he says, but you learned these things through that vision. And just to instill this thought, awaken within the spirit of this human beings, because we all knew each other in the spirit world one time. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, whatever.
Yeah.
We all knew each other in the spirit when we came here. And in a Lakota culture, there's no heaven or there's no hell. We have a spirit world. When we end our journey here, because we were born to die. So
all of us.
You have 4 faces you have to see if you can accomplish that. A lot of people don't see that. You know, they see the child, the face of the child,
Mm-hmm.
face of the adolescent, face of the adult, face of the aged. It's a circle. Okay. Once you complete that circle, what you learn, if it's positive and good, your journey back to the spirit world is smooth. But there isn't that many who understand that with fear, because organized religious leaders teach them to fear God or fear death. Okay, and everything else, the scientists, they tell you, oh, the world's going to end, it's going to blow up. Well, it's going to do it. That's what I'm talking about, is this screaming and hollering and panic people are doing. This is when the earth is going to purify herself. See, right now, if you look around, the world is injuring and hurting Mother Earth. Mother Earth has to survive. If she doesn't survive, everything dies.
I was going to say, we don't
But
survive.
she's
Yeah.
not going to die. She's going to purify herself. She said she purified herself 3 times already. You know,
Mm-hmm.
destroyed humankind, her own children, and she couldn't stand killing her own children. We're her children. Doesn't matter what color skin we have, where we're from. We're from India or Europe or Australia or wherever, or from California, New York, wherever. We're all the children of Mother Earth, because our flesh comes from the earth.
Right.
One day it's going to go back to the earth. So, but the concept of an entity that we don't know, we don't see, is very much at work right now. And this is what the Spirit told me also. We call it in Lakota, Wakan Shicha, sacred evil.
Mm.
And most cultures around the world have this. Know who this person is. No, it's not a person. It's a little ball of energy that never existed like we are. But it's the one that lives under the guise of controlling people who have fear.
Mm-hmm.
It knows how to manipulate your thinking, your mind, your heart, to pull you to one side and make it sound good. It can show itself to you hideous ways, or it can show itself better handsome than any man or woman you ever see. It can come in the form of male or female. But it can come and take the voice of somebody who's weak, but it shows itself that it's strong, and use that voice of that person or woman to manipulate others with fabrications. And this is what's happening right now around the world. This Wakanshija, and then there's a lot of them that die, that don't go to the spirit world. So this entity's got them. It's not a he or a she, it's just an entity. It's called Wakanshija, a sacred evil. It does nothing positive with it. Everything this entity, this spirit does is it's negative. And then you have the positive ones. That's us. We are the positive ones. We came here. We inhabited a body. We do no fear. We had no fear. So we got this body. Okay. And as we learned, I was, like I said, learn from the elders. But now I am an elder. So now I'm trying to share what I've learned through my life to those that give me an ear. And I've been trying my best to try to share this with the world, or even this country. And I got others helping me. The lady who helped me with the book in France, she's trying to help me to maybe do a documentary or a movie.
I think that's great.
And I have another one. And you met her, I think, last time we were at the Parapod thing. Her name was Ziggy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
International Film Festival in San Pedro. She got on board with me because she liked what I was telling her. And these are person. The thing is, too, is what's the difficult part with me is these two, Ziggy and Claire in France, they have a native tongue, just like my wife. She speaks her native tongue. And because this language we're talking at is called, the spirits call it a backwards language. It's a backwards language because they don't even want to learn it. I've had people tell me, oh, your grandfather spoke to me. I said, do you speak Lakota? And they said, no. I said, well, you can't be him. He doesn't speak English, or he doesn't speak no other language except Lakota. So what it is in this language, you can control people. And see, this is where the Wakashicha is really good at that, using this language to control the spirits. And the spirits that, the spirit told me, he said, you might even find your grandchildren, your cousins, your aunties, uncles, whatever. He said, you're going to see them get fooled by this. And they're going to walk away. And he says, there's nothing, the spirit told me there's nothing you can do. You can't make them do anything they don't want to do. They have to do it themselves. Because letting go of fear is the same thing. They have to let go of themselves. They got to look at people as a spirit, not as the outside, but as a soul.
Right.
Because we understand the good and bad. We understand the positive, negative. Most of us should anyway. But a lot of us are being tempted and taken and controlled by fear, by this wakashicha. So again, this fourth purification is going to start, and it's going to be. I mean, I don't fear it. I welcome it, because what's happening to the people doing to Mother Earth around the world,
it's terrible.
I feel sad for her, because
yeah, me too.
I said we as human beings, we have to work together as, letting go of fear. Don't be afraid of anything. Don't be afraid of death. I tell them, I said, if somebody wants to kill you because of your belief or what you think, let it happen. I said, back to the spirit world. It's a lot better place than here. And they asked me, this is, where's the spirit world? I said, well, it's so far away that you'll never get there. Even with the fastest, you can have the Star Trek USS Enterprise with Captain Kirk guiding you. You'll never get there.
Right.
I said, so how do you get there? I said, well, Einstein had a very good identification of this. The Earth is a plane. The galaxy is a plane. And at times it does this.
Yeah, it bends.
When you hear people say they had near-death experiences, they see a tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when the Earth does that, they go through. And some of them say that on the other side, they see a relative waiting for them. And they go through, and then it straightens out. You're in the spirit world. And it's so far away that you can never get there. But when the plane of the galaxy does this, you can get through. And this galaxy is so huge. I mean, the space is so huge. We're just a little speck in all these other galaxies around the world. I mean, around the space. And we have this, what we call it Makasitomi. It's all these planets and stars right here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a little speck. The pinhead of a pin is who we are here. And people, I was laughing, and listen to these guys say, oh, there's the intelligent life out there. I say, we're not the intelligent life out there. We're not even in preschool.
You're right. Well, Ernie, real quick before, because I want to ask a question, and also I have somebody in the chat room that has a question, and I think it's a great question to ask. When you mentioned the Creator and then Mother Earth, are those two different things? And is the Creator, because in Christianity we have the Father, the Ghost, or the Holy Spirit, and what is it, Father? I can't even remember. But is it a gender thing? Like, when is the Creator a gender? Like, is it a masculine energy, or is it how does that work in the Lakota?
Okay, well, again, that same question I had, I was on the vision quest there, and this huge ball of light came in front of me, and it stood there, and from it came a voice came from there, but it didn't sound like anything I ever heard. But it was talking in Lakota, and it was telling me, about my vision here.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of shrank and went back up into the sky. So when I said this at the ceremony, afterwards, the purification last, I said, I seen this, and the medicine man told me, he says, that was Wakankanka, the great mystery, came to see you. So I said, well, and I said, he talked to me. I said, but I didn't understand, is it a man or a woman?
Right.
He said, that he didn't tell me, but he says that's why we call that entity Wakantanka, the great mystery.
All right.
So he says, one day, he says, we're all going to go back to the spirit world and we'll know who this creator is. And the earth is the mother. She has a soul, and she's a spirit inside of this earth. And, they also told me, that all these planets that's circling around the sun at one time had garnered life like the earth, were the only ones left that still nurtured life. That earth grows, how the balancing the ecosystem thing here. All these other ones, their inhabitants were killed off because of their negative ways that this Wakashita controlled them. And this is a very powerful entity. It's not a male or a female. It's just a light. And I had another one ask me, he says, how do spirits communicate? Well, it's just, the spirit told me it's like two electrical pulses, they go, but they have a message in them. And when
kind of like Morse code.
Yeah, just like a pup, it carries so much. And in our Lakota language, at the beginning, before the white man came here, we only had about 300 words.
Oh, really?
I mean, we didn't have a conversation, because that's what I'm telling you again, is backwards language. Everybody wants to know when you talk about something. They want to know what color, what it is, how deep is it, what is. Well, in the Lakota language, one word covers it all. Everybody who listens to you knows who you're talking about, what direction you're talking about, what you're talking about, what you said. So you didn't really have to converse like we're doing right now, So, these are the things in our Lakota culture that with me, I just, because I can't have hate. I cannot have hate, and I cannot despise individuals for what they say or what they think of me, or what they think of Earth, or what they think of each other. Because I knew them all. We knew each other one time, in the spirit world, and they probably weren't like that in the spirit world.
I've heard of as a spirit family. Yeah.
Their peers and their parents and their family here.
Yeah. Well, I've heard many like psychics and stuff like that. They call them spirit families. I don't know if that would be kind of a word that you guys would use, but I do have a question. And it's a great one. It says, "Hi Ernie hi Tony and Ernie. Can a regular person connect with spirit, or does it require an initiation?" So, what is your thoughts on that?
Okay. Every person can connect with the spirit. The spirit, because we all have what I call is, I guess the greatest, the most closest explanation to all of us having this is what you call a spiritual guide. It's an entity. It could be a relative, or it could be a friend, or it could be an ancient spirit from a long time ago, or it could be an animal spirit, a bird, or a bear, or a wolf, or something.
Right.
But they're the ones who are always your intuition. You get a gut feeling. You want to go somewhere, and all of a sudden you had this little pango in your gut, or your cheek bounces, or your eyeball twitches a little bit. That's your intuition telling you don't go, or yes, go ahead. You have to remember. See, in this world right now, the society is going so fast in one direction that you're overriding or underneath riding the spirit.
Right.
You can connect with the spirit yourself. You don't need a medicine man, or you don't need a preacher or anything. If you want to come, if you have a problem with something, I always tell this to people: if you have a tree close to you or somewhere, just go up to that tree, put your back, lean up against it, and talk to the Creator. Talk to, as we call it, and other people call him God, and Muhammad or whatever,
right,
Allah,
right.
all this, but you can speak directly to him, and I had another one ask me, it says, I can't, I have no other language except this language. But I said, okay, but it doesn't matter. You have to think with your spirit, your heart. The words that come out of here may not be just what you're thinking in your heart. So you stand there and you think
Mm-hmm.
to the creator by putting your back to that tree. And then, like the Rolling Stone song says, your answer might be, you might not always get what you want, but you'll get something that'll give you direction.
Mm-hmm.
Then you just can't go from boom, boom, boom like this. You have to cast it because you have to be able to see. That's the difficulty as a spirit that we know. We have to be able to understand how to walk. Don't take somebody's word for granted. That's what I did. I listened to all these elders, and they always tell me something, a story about the earth or about the animals or about the stars, about anything. But they all have a great story.
Hmm.
But there's a part in there that that acknowledges to me that I can use in my journey in recognizing who I am. And they always told me when I was growing up in amongst people in Rapid City, and I had a school teacher when I was in sixth grade. She said, "There's nothing perfect in this world." And I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah." And my mother just got through telling me a couple of years before that I was perfect. And so I went home and asked my mother. I says, "This is what teacher said." She said, "Yeah." She said, "No, she doesn't understand." She says, "Every person out here that in the Lakota, our little community, they were all like me. They were all taught as we were, sharing the
Right.
story." And she says, "Every one of them is who they are.
Hmm.
They are perfect in who they are. They don't want to be like their dad, your uncle, or their friend over here, or Muhammad Ali, or Elvis Presley, or nobody. They have to be who they are.
Hmm.
And as they grow into that, they become who they are. They're perfect. There's nobody else going to be like them in this world or in this universe. That's who they are. That's the perfection of each individual. You're perfect in who you are. You don't have to tell anybody, hey, I'm perfect. You know you are because you learned. And she said, you could be a bum on the street, but be a perfect bum.
I love that. And one thing that I years ago when I was a kid, I still do. I just always felt so close to the Native Americans and the natives of this amazing land that we live in. But when I did the DNA testing, I was disappointed that I didn't have any DNA of the native tribes in this country. What does the native feel about reincarnation? Because we talk about the spirit world. Is there a reincarnation in your culture?
Okay, that's another good question because I was in the ceremony and this little girl was talking about that. She was probably, I call her little because she's probably old enough to be my great granddaughter, but she was probably 18, 19 years old. And again, the ceremonies that was given to us, females do not have to sit in a purification lodge with men.
Hmm.
They don't need to. And they don't even need to go around the lodge because that's for men only, not for women. But they didn't have the when I was started this, they didn't have the real spiritual women that shared with them these things. So she come
Right.
in there and she asked that question, and I said, I was thinking, I said, okay, what was it? What was we talking about?
Oh no, about like reincarnation. Like,
Oh, yeah. So she asked, she says that she had deja vu, you know,
right.
and she says, uh, was I here before? Or,
Mm-hmm.
did I? And so the spirit come in and he says, well, he says, in our Lakota way, Lakota culture, all cultures in this earth, around the world, he said, everybody believes in the number four. He says, there's four directions.
Mm-hmm.
He says, and there's four seasons. And there's four things above the earth. He said the sun, the moon, the planets, and the stars.
Hmm.
He says, and it tells us there's four parts of your human heart. So he said, each spirit that comes here, he says, the goal of Wakantanka, the great mystery, is each time you come. I mean, he says a spirit comes the first time, and it makes a journey, and it comes at a time when at random.
Hmm.
You don't choose your parents. He says a man and a woman conceive a child. It needs a spirit, so you come down and a spirit comes in there and goes into this body,
Right.
and that body is its home. And the soul is the one that's sacred, not the body. It's born, it learns. And then it says if it's a positive spirit, and then it goes around and it ends its journey. And it goes back to the spirit world. Then it comes back again.
Hmm.
4 times. He says after the 4th time, you should be able to, that spirit should know how to function as a spirit, because a spirit is like when you're born, you're a baby.
Right.
Same thing. The spirit is born as just a child. It has to learn how to work with the body, mind, and heart.
Mm-hmm.
Body and how to learn. It learns from, together. The mind and body and soul, they all learn together. Make mistakes, do things positive, negative, whatever. It's what you learn. Your mind and heart learn this. And the soul is the one that's, we all were pure at one time, and
Right.
the soul stays pure. And, you have to protect your soul. And after the 4th journey, you're done. I don't know what this creator is going to do for you afterwards.
Right. Right.
They also told me when I was having a vision there at Bear Butte, the spirit came in there. He told me, he said that that right after World War II, he said how many millions of people died around the world from this war, in Europe and in the Pacific theater.
Mm-hmm.
He said they just, over some little thing, maybe a little disagreement or whatever, but or trying to be rule over others. And he says this war happened, and he says it was no war of honor. He said they're killing each other. Young men, young kids
Mm-hmm.
died. And he said the future of Mother Earth was at a time when she may repurify herself. So he said the spirit came, the Wakantanka came. This is what the spirit was telling me on Bear Butte there. So Wakantanka came to all those that completed four journeys here. So they came 4 times, and now they're back in the spirit world. And he told them, he said, I need volunteers to come down and help try to change the course of the human race, all the human beings, to understand some things, that war is not the answer to anything.
Right. Right.
He said from the year 1948 to the year 1952, 4 years, he says he had a strong influx of spirits that did the fourth term. And these spirits that came this time, he says, they came for the 5th time. They're volunteers.
Oh,
So
wow.
Parents. And he told me, he said, you picked your mother and father. They were middle-aged. They already had children. Some of my brothers and sisters on each side could be my father and mothers. But I came to them, and I was the only child that had between them. But I chose them. Why? I don't know. I mean, I didn't want to question. That's another thing. You don't question the spirit when he tells you something. You don't say why or anything like that. You don't say how come or anything.
Right.
Or whys or would have, should have. It's just you take it. And then when they tell you something, you take it and you put it inside your mind and your heart, and you analyze it. Eventually, it comes to fruition. That the message, that what they told you makes sense.
Yeah.
Just like a woman. Like you take a woman, you ask her a question, and that's 2 men sitting there and one woman, and she tells you something, and to the men, it sounds so stupid. It's like,
Right.
so you don't understand it. So you say, oh, she's full of crap. Oh, well, but if you slow yourself down and think about what she said, in a day or two, you start to realize, man, she makes a lot of sense what she just said. Then you look at yourself and say, what would I have done? You don't know, right? Man, I mean, we weren't born to be like that. We were
Yeah.
born to be providers and protectors
Right.
and caretakers of the people, not to be wisdom people.
That's hilarious. I love it. Ernie, I love talking to you. And like I said, I can't believe it's been a year and a half, but you are such a joy and just amazing man that share your wisdom with us. And I have one more question, then unfortunately we got to close it down. But like you said, the way what we're going through right now, in the world, can you share some values or traditions from the Lakota culture that you believe could maybe benefit society in a more kind of a widely understood and practice way, that people may be listening today and go, what can I do? How can I connect to Creator? How can I, calm my mind down and not have fear? Because like you said, your culture was born to not have fear. So how do we do that with the Lakota culture?
Well, I can't tell you it's my culture. It's everybody is an individual. Unfortunately, I was born as a Lakota. And these were
Right.
the values that we hold.
Right.
We're from this planet, from this turtle island. Been here for thousands of years. And those around me that came here, at one time, they all had a culture like mine, somehow close to it. So within themselves, when they took the position of who they are, they gave up their language, and they gave up their understanding of the balance of fear,
Right.
generosity, all that, and fear is what controls the people. So the only thing I can say is they have to teach themselves, like in the classroom, to let go of fear. If you're walking along there and there's 20 people in front of you and saying something to you, or coming after you for something, or trying to make you argue,
Right. Right.
have no fear. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to argue with them. You don't have to say anything to them. But together, if the world would get together and have no fear, well, Kanshita cannot be successful in what he does. But you're going to have to do it. You can't revert to this. And the vision I told you about, all these people that were crying and screaming.
Right.
At one time, there's a day coming right now, just before the fourth purification. A lot of these people are going to let go of fear, they think. But then all of a sudden, Kanshita is going to come back and throw lies and temptations to him. They're going to gravitate to him. And then this purification is going to start. Their bodies are going to be dead, but their souls are going to be the ones that's going to be screaming and hollering for eternity. Wow. That's their hell. They're not going to go to the spirit world, and nobody's going to save them. The only thing that can save them is themselves.
Wow.
And that's to let go of fear, be positive, and if something happened, they destroy your body, your soul goes back to the spirit world. When this purification starts, you got to get through it with your spirit and make it back. If you don't, there's a wall there. It says purification.
Right.
Where you're going to be screaming and hollering and begging for help for eternity.
Wow.
It's not going to end. Your soul is going to be suffering. And I feel so sad. I mean, not sad, but I feel concerned, kind of in a way.
Right.
Because you can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do.
True. That is true.
Oh, he's just full of crap toward me. But it's their life, not mine. I can't make you do anything you don't want to do.
Right.
You are the one who's going to do it. And we can communicate with each other like you and I do. I mean, we haven't done it for a little while, but, we can have that connection. I mean, that's how a lot of people that I speak with, they always connect with me and say, let's the one reassurance
Right,
of what
right.
to do. And the number one thing is the reassurance they have to have is they have to have it to themselves first. And I can't give them. There's no grade. There's nothing that I can say. Hey, you made it so far. You have to tell yourself that. You have to grade yourself. You have to be positive within yourself and keep that fear from overriding. Every time fear tries to come up, use humor to cover it up. See, the Lakota people, you come around Lakota people and you sit amongst us and we're telling stories. When you leave that evening, your face is going to hurt because you left.
I love to laugh. I love to laugh.
Yeah, that's how we overcome racism,
Yeah.
because we talk to each other, after we face racism, and we laugh and say, man, that guy doesn't. Then people don't know who we are.
Yeah. No, it's true.
I mean, we have no political identity. There's no word for conservative in Lakota,
Hmm.
because conservative and generosity don't go together. This is an oxymoron position you're in.
Mm.
You're generous, you're compassionate, you're generous. And somebody needs something, you give it to them. You help them without even being asked. You don't say, "Well, I'm gonna keep it because you don't have it." Kind of a thing. I'm better than you because I have it, you don't. No, it doesn't work that way. So that's what my grandfather did. He was a compassionate, generous person. He was the poorest man in the village.
Hmm.
Anybody needed a horse, he gave it. If he had extra money, he gave it to him.
Wow.
He used to stay, he gave him his teepee because he knew he could always get it, acquire it. And this is, like I said, I'm not like my great grandfather because we don't live in teepees or ride horses anymore. So it's a little different, but
Right.
it's we're all I can say is I'm just hoping from my heart, man, and my thinking and my soul, that what I'm saying to you today or this evening will generally hit or awaken some of your listeners to say, look, I've got to start trying my best to let go of fear. To understand, I mean, we have it, we're not going to get rid of it,
Hmm.
but we can't let it override us, because if you have fear, you're going to follow the fear minded ones.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
the ones who talk tough. And eventually they're going to take the people that follow them. It's like a steer going into the slaughterhouse to be
Yep.
hamburgers on the other side. And you just follow them right in there. And before you know it, your body's hamburgers, and your soul is lost. Your soul, I mean, this whole country's full of ghosts. I was telling this to your paranormal guys. This whole country, you don't need to go to Deadwood, or you don't need to go to Tombstone
Right.
or whatever. Just walk out there somewhere in the prairie. They're all buried out there, and their ghosts are still there. They didn't go to the spirit world because they're afraid to go, because they were taught that. Fear God, fear death. You're not gonna, if you do this. So, I just got through watching this morning on Travel Channel the dead files and stuff. I
Right. Right.
chuckle about them. I says, wow. I says, these guys, they speak to these what is it, poultry guys or whatever, ghosts or I mean, they're here. They're because they have, so they might have did something wrong, and they're guilty, so they don't want to go to the spirit world because they fear the creator. They fear Wakantanka.
Hmm.
They think, but actually, you shouldn't fear. It doesn't matter what you make mistakes. You can always rejuvenate yourself.
Right. Right.
Maybe come back another time. That's maybe this is your first or second time here, and you're starting to realize, the mistakes you make. Always learn from it and don't do it again. Never argue, never badmouth people, and don't take being somebody's racist towards you, because it's, as white people, you face that same reverse racism from natives and black people and Hispanic people. If you're white, you go amongst there and they get on you.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be able to survive. Like I say, we just need that compassion.
Yeah.
We need to care for one another. We need that humor. And there's no word in Lakota for "I love you." Because these are words that people use. But what I use is "Washtetchi-laki." I really like you. That's kind of basically close to saying I love you as a person. And if I like you, I'm gonna tease you. If I don't like
Yeah.
you, you ain't gonna hear nothing from
I
me.
was going to say I'm the same way. If I tease you, then you know I like you.
Yeah. Just like when I was talking to my wife when you emailed me, she said, "Who emailed you?" I said, "Tony Sweet." And she said, "Who?" I said, "Sweet Tea." She said, "Who? Sweet Pea?" And I said, "No,
No,
Sweet
I got
Tea."
my sweet tea right here also. Well, Ernie, you are amazing, and I thank you for joining us today. And I hope you come back sooner than a year and a half. We have a lot more to talk about, but I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your culture with us, not just on Native American Heritage Month, but just always. You're always somebody that is willing to share the wisdom to the masses, and we really appreciate it. Do you have anything coming up you're going to be speaking at?
I got I got a couple of them already. But they're not from the U.S. One's from England.
Oh, wow.
Next week, I think, and then I have Telemundo guy from Spain who wants to interview me, and
That's
uh,
amazing.
I think there's some other ones in right now in the wings. I haven't really, asked them what dates they want to do
Right,
this, but
right.
November's you get slammed.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
I mean, I try to get through to people that I'm not a bad guy. I try to be a nice guy to everybody and share my thoughts and
Hmm.
if you don't want to find yourself, that's up to you.
Right,
I
right.
just feel that somewhere along the road that maybe I knew you in another time or back in the spirit world or something. That we were friends or we got along great or whatever. But it's your journey, just like my journey.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to help them along. To say, okay, find yourself and create this journey and walk softly. You can't hurry nothing. You have to have patience.
Hmm.
All these things are Lakota values. Patience. You always you can't just rush into things because once you rush into something, you can make a mistake. And well, because she's just waiting, man, that evil entity is going to
Yeah.
tempt you one way or
Don't
the other,
don't let it.
put fear back into you real quick. And you don't need that, because it's a beautiful time when you laugh and enjoy the nature that's around, and back to the spirit world. It's more beautiful back there than, I mean, Christians talk about heaven and hell. There's no heaven and hell. There's just a beautiful spirit world, and hell is what you create for yourself,
Amen to that.
you know.
Amen to that. Well, we thank you so much, and please give your wife a big hug from me, and you keep one for yourself. And I can't wait to have you back on the show.
Sure, man, anytime.
Of course, of course. And please go get the book if you, I know it's in French, but please get the book. And if you guys want to have Ernie come speak somewhere, please. He's worth sitting 5 hours for. I mean, he's amazing. So, but thank you, Ernie, and thank you everybody for being part of Truth Be Told. We really appreciate you joining the subscribers on our channel, sharing it with your friends, subscribing to our podcast on Apple and Spotify and iHeartRadio. And make sure you listen to Robert Hensley every Monday at 3 o'clock for the Minutemen Report. Bonnie Burkert does a show on Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And then, of course, me every Friday right here after almost 14 years and 1,000 episodes. I love what I do. I love to talk to the people that we get to talk to. But until next time, please take care of yourself and each other, because that's all we have. Take care, guys.